Hi, good morning, guys. Just a small rant. Okay, so because recently a lot of YouTube influencers they're stating that the markets are not following the fundamentals, and it's because reasons like the markets are emotional, or the markets can be irrational, and the markets do what they do. Like, there's no way you can understand why sometimes things happen, like why the stock price dump, or why does the stock price rally against their fundamentals. But you could have just, paused to think about the perspective that you have on the stock market, because to me stock market is just like a simple instrument whereby you compete against other players to see who can take the most out of the market. Well, technically speaking, if you're taking money out of the market, it also means that you're taking other people's money and making it your own. So stock market is just an instrument of exchanging money, or can I say it's like a competition. So whoever has the better read of the markets will get to profit the most. This is my perspective of the stock markets, right? Therefore, there's no point in reading all the fundamentals of the company's reports, earnings. To me, it's all just a waste of time. In my opinion, of course, you may have yours, they may have theirs. It doesn't matter as long as you are able to take profits from the markets, right? So when you simplify it, you should be thinking or learning how can you take money from other people more efficiently in the markets, so to speak. Because ultimately, whether you're an investor or whether you are a trader, profit is what you seek. It's just that there are labels in this industry that some may anchor themselves into. So maybe before moving into 2023, you can take some time to reflect on how you view the markets, right? Is it really about investing in good companies, right? Believing that a company can change the world or help other people, so you're kind of invested into it monetarily and perhaps emotionally or morally. I mean, it's better to be clear cut, right? Like, draw a line on your purpose of entering the markets. So with such environments, with inflation above normal, and narratives with interest rates are set to go higher, what's the point in DCA, dollar cost averaging, when you know that you're in a risk off environment? It just doesn't make sense, right? The more you put in money into the markets without taking it out in a short period of time, because as you know, dollar cost averaging strategy involves a lot of time to realize your profits or to see the results, much like growing a plant. It doesn't take a few days, it takes weeks and months. So by doing so, you're just becoming the liquidity provider in the markets, because when the big entities, the smart monies, wants to buy in or wants to exit the markets, I would say mainly exit the markets, you will be technically their buyers, right? Because if they exit the markets, they have to sell their shares or contracts, right? So in a way, they need buyers. So when you buy in, you become their liquidity, you become their exit liquidity. I mean, it just doesn't make sense, right? Why would you do that? And without clear understanding of the game of the markets, like how does it run on, what are the rules, or like a set of tendencies, behaviors of the markets, don't you think that you're going in to a competition blind? Because as I said, the market is a competition whereby people go in and see who can take the most out of everybody else. I mean, that's just the facts. So maybe just reflect on this and see if any change is warranted in your perspective of the markets, and if even your long-term strategy makes sense, right? Ultimately, I believe that there is no such thing as long-term investors in the markets, because eventually you're going to take profits whether you're playing it long-term or short-term. So everybody's the same, everybody's just another trader. Because once you buy a company, I mean, like for example a share of a company, you're technically buying from someone else, and when you sell, you're selling it to someone else. It's just the time horizon or the time frame that you look to execute on that order, right? So as long as you're buying and selling in the markets, you are essentially a trader. You're not an investor of the company. Is it logical to say that? I mean, like, if you think about it, I don't know about you, but I think it's simple enough to differentiate this logic from the blind sheeps that say that it's all about the fundamentals and eventually evaluations will match up. You gotta understand that the market's manipulated, it's controlled, right? Even the COVID crash, it's controlled. It was never selling or buying pressure. The only selling and buying pressure that the stock market prints, I mean for the candlesticks, right, are the buying and selling of the smart monies, the big entities, which have a lot of liquidity to be able to move the markets. That's where you see the buying or selling pressure. It's never from the retail, never from the banks, or from investment institutions, for example, Citadel, BlackRock. Yes, you might see a small chip, but you would never see it like a move up and never coming back. For example, COVID, right? For example, January 2022, right? This type of trend down movement, strong movement down, you don't see it from, it's not from institutions, it's from some entities that are bigger than institutions. And if you think about it, let me just give you an example, right? If you have a lot of money, capital, how do you enter the markets? Let's say you want to buy a certain stock, a certain asset. How do you enter the markets? Right? You got to enter the markets where people put their stop loss here. Or you must wait for the market to reach a certain level whereby people in the markets, players in the markets are more inclined to sell their shares to you. That's the only way you can buy those shares in a large quantity. Does it make sense? This is why you see every time before a reversal or before a retracement, there is always a stop hunt, right? If you just look at the chart, it's pretty clear. So smart money or the big entities, okay, I should just call them smart money, they don't only buy. When they buy, they have to sell. Because why? They look for profits. So where do you think has the biggest liquidity pool for them to exit their positions? It would be the stops above, right? The the price will have to reach a certain level whereby either there are people putting buy stops above the market price, or they must reach a certain level whereby people are inclined to buy into the markets. So right now, does it make sense? The concepts that I laid out today are mostly from ICT. Okay, he's a big influence of how I change my perspective in viewing the markets. And because previously I'm the same blind retail investor that seeks to look at every earning reports, company fundamentals, the moat of the company, right? Reading about the news of what's happening with the company, what did the CEO say, what was the agenda for the company for the next few years, all this bullshit. Spend a lot of time. Turns out they weren't very helpful. Right, so to me, the only fundamentals that you should really consider is basically the interest rates, because the interest rates drives the stock market up and down. It's the main narrative. It doesn't care how good a company is, how good is the revenue increase. It does not care. Because the thing is that people look for profits. They don't look at the companies. They don't buy into good companies. They buy into companies that are very popular, because that is where the liquidity lies. It's easy to build liquidities in popular companies where there are lots of volume. Right? So just maybe you can just pause to think and think of how you're gonna approach 2023. Right, as I've shown you in previous videos, the market is not very difficult to predict. You don't have to catch the top or the bottoms. All you have to do is to predict where the market is going next based on the candlesticks. They tell a story, and usually when you read a storybook, you tend to be able to anticipate what's going next, especially if the storybook hasn't changed authors in 30 years. You will know what is the signature of the author. You will know what the author tends to write, or at certain chapters of the book tends to pivot narratives. It's the same for the markets. There is a deeper dive into how the market operates, but this is just the basics, right? Because I was a blind retail investor before and I got hurt before. This is why 2022 was a beautiful lesson. When you lose, you need to find out why you lost to be able to eliminate the problem or the cause of your loss. And from there, you seek to improve your system so that you don't lose more. That is sports, right? You seek to improve at a game and you fix every problems that you have within the game, and then you want to have a high probability of success with your system. So learn something when you lose money, because the lesson is always more powerful than if you win money. When you win money, there's nothing to learn, because you're winning. You don't have to change anything, right? But when you're losing, you got to realize that you have to change something. Something's not right. Which is what led to my perspective today. And moving forward in 2023, my main goal will be to recoup the losses that I've made as a retail investor. And I will want to prove further that this logic stands. I'm not trying to force you into this system. Believe it or not, it's entirely up to you. But I'll just want to journal it down, and because journaling is very useful for me, that's all. I'm just improving myself, okay, so not trying to sell you anything, not trying to force you into anything, but just question it. No harm questioning it. Like, why did you lose money? Why did the markets act or react this way? There's a reason for everything. Don't tell me that everything is irrational, emotional, unexplainable. Anything that is man-made has science and math behind it. There's logic behind it. Is the market man-made? Of course it is. It doesn't come from the gods. It doesn't come as a natural occurrence or a natural phenomenon from nature, right? Think about it. Just think about it. That's all. That's all for today.